Hello and welcome to the show, once again brought to you with support of Mediaproxy. Now, KVM, keyboard, video, mouse, is not new to KitPlus TV, but with remote working now becoming the norm, it's certainly become to the fore in recent times. Being able to utilise an existing network infrastructure to extend your resources with easy installation and taking zero space does seem too good to be true, though.
And with us today to tell us why it's not too good to be true is Jamie Adkin from Adder Technology. Welcome to the show. So,
hey guys,
again, Jamie, before we get too deep, where's the demand for KVM solutions at the moment, specifically due to the lockdown faced by so many of us?
Yeah, well, when we talk about KVM, we're talking about keyboard, mouse access, and most of the time we've been talking about that being from anywhere in the world. So COVID really did drive up demand for our remote access solutions. But I think really as we look back at the last year, it's not only been remote access, but it's also been about how we help people solve the problem of social distancing internally within the building. How do we keep people from having to walk around a facility or move to different locations? And so KVM has really become about bringing the computers that people need to access to their desk or to wherever they're working, whether that is still in a facility or whether it's now a home office or back bedroom.
Yeah.
So tell us about your recent news then, Jamie, about the recent AdLink Infinity 101T launch that you've had.
Yeah, so this is really a new evolution of our ZeroU product line, which is something we introduced back in 2018. And it was really in response to broadcasters looking at making, at the time, either a switch from analog to digital for many customers, or at the same time, people really looking at how they adopt KVM at broad scale. And one of the common things we see across the broadcast industry is that the people we're working with are typically in high-cost real estate areas, and so every U of rack mounting that they have is money being spent. And so we talked to a lot of customers about the benefits of IP, and people were really seeing value in the high-density nature of the networks, moving away from what had historically been large chassis or routers taking up huge amounts of rack space. And then when you move to a more distributed function, we started to say, well, actually, can we help these people even further by miniaturizing what we do, particularly within the server room space? So we launched the AdLink Infinity 100 range, which has been on the market now for 3 years and been just a huge sea change in the adoption again of IP, because people are able to do that at a scale that is easy to adopt, easy to install, saves them time and saves them huge amounts of money in space. So the 101T is leveraging that development and takes it a step further. So we're enhancing the performance of the product, adding new compatibility for DisplayPort and HDMI, and also beyond that, offering support for a broader range of peripherals with USB 2. So it's a real enhancement on what we've been doing over the last few years, really in response for the market demand for increased resolutions and increased peripheral support as well.
So you've coined this phrase, ZeroU. Is this what does it mean in reality? Is this just a working philosophy, or is it a product range, or is it a working,
Yeah, it's really a philosophy about how KVM can be installed, and ultimately the background of KVM. If people talk about the analog days of KVM, we used to see a lot of what now we would class as ZeroU devices. And as people moved into the digital space, we saw something performing let's say a similar job in the digital world, manufacturers producing large boxes that take up multi U's of rack space. And so we decided to spend a lot of energy in solving that problem. And when you think about customers adding 200, 300, 400 servers, yes, it's great to get the U space down and be high density, but even better if you don't need any U space at all. And the 100 and the 101T deliver that in that they're an inline transmitter. So they effectively sit in the air in where the cable space would have been. You don't need a physical location to actually store them and mount them. And therefore the concept of ZeroU is born, because you don't need a single U of rack space to install tens or hundreds of them.
Yeah. Now, it's always interesting to see where people are utilising KVM. Which applications have seen success and most benefit?
Well, when we're looking at broadcast market, I guess it's very broad. There's lots of different applications. When we talk about live television, broadcast studios, accessing galleries, radio is somewhere where, again, we see a real demand for the high density. Tends to be there's not a lot of rack space available. And even more so, actually, if we come into the studio itself, there's a requirement for devices to be small, which is something we've really focused on in the last few years in the range in general. Beyond that, of course, there's also a demand for KVM within the media space, high-end graphics, visual effects. Now, these customers are really pushing the boundaries in terms of what are we delivering across the network for KVM. So one of the other announcements we have out recently is that we're now supporting HDR10 with the AdLink Infinity range with the ALIF 4000. But it is really that broad spectrum. So the 101T is really to answer the challenges of customers adopting KVM in that high density environment, but needing the latest in terms of peripheral support and also the video connections, because now we're seeing servers coming with DisplayPort and HDMI connectivity, where for a long time they remained VGA or DVI. And so we're making it easy for people to adopt these new platforms just by having the ability to plug in without adapters, for example, which is a bugbear of most broadcasters.
Yeah, I guess, there's been a lot of different video formats. For a long time, what was the thinking behind the decision to extend this range of connectivity now over and above, any other time, to the new connectivity types?
Yeah, look, I remember many years ago talking about VGA would be dead and we'd all be digital. And of course, servers have continued to ship with VGA and we're still supporting that today. But really, it's about that key point is that mass market turn. And we've seen HDMI and DisplayPort become that more and more in the last few years, DisplayPort particularly over DVI. So we've had the DisplayPort model in the range in the 100 for those 3 years now, and it's been extremely popular. Obviously, we expect that to continue. But one of the things that those newer connections provide is support for higher resolution. So we're actually supporting the dual link standards up to 2560 by 1600 with the 101T as well. So that's another step change, really, in that we're not only supporting the connectors, but then supporting the resolutions that they offer as well. And again, it just makes it easier for people to adopt, knowing that, okay, what I put in there now, a lot of people aren't going to be using necessarily that full capacity, but I've got that in, and that future-proofs me over the next 5 or 10 years. It's not at the stage where KVM is being ripped and replaced every year, as we would, the phones in the pockets or the laptops that we're using. People want longevity in the platform.
So, Jamie, we've discussed a few applications there, and while I've got you, I've got an application which I need to talk to you about. So we're running this show through vMix on a laptop, which is by and large a laptop I use in another room of my house. We're basically in our own homes now in a green screen studio.
Yep.
Now, every time we do a show, every time we do something in our virtual studio, the laptop has to up sticks, be brought into the studio, be connected up to all the various accessories I have. When ultimately I need a KVM solution. I need the video, I need a keyboard, I need a mouse, and I need access to plug in another USB device, which we use a Stream Deck to basically switch the show. What should I be looking at in the KVM world to solve this problem?
Okay, so there's a few things we'd always ask customers, and one of those would be, how far do you want to extend? You're talking about a room nearby, so I'm going to assume you're within 100 meters or so of that room, and that opens up a number of different products to you.
Not that big a house.
We're looking for those peripherals you mentioned, first of all. So one of the things to look out for is this concept of USB, not quite as universal as the name would suggest. And it is important that you assess if you want keyboard and mouse, but you're looking for, you mentioned Stream Deck there. We've got a range of products that will support USB 2 and those Stream Deck-like products. And then video. Couple of things that you mentioned that would stand out. One, absolutely, we can get the video into the room for you across a Cat5 cable. We're going to do that by taking the video from your laptop, extending it across that Cat6 cable to a receiver in the room where it's going to give you your USB connections and that video connection for your screen. But I'm also going to assume you probably want to use it when you're back in your office. And particularly when we come to things like laptops, we see people wanting to plug in a local screen. So it might be worth looking at a KVM that's got a local feed through port or a splitter locally so that you can continue to plug your monitor in that room while still having access remotely. And those are the types of things that really differentiate the products on the market. It's what resolution of monitor are you going to look at? How far do you want to extend it? What peripherals are you going to play? And really, how are you going to use it? It may be that you're in one room and you want a user being able to access it and see it in the other room at the same time in an application. That's going to be a different demand than if you're moving the PC to a rack room or a server room where no one's going to access it locally. So that's really why we offer the breadth of products that we do, is to cater for all of those different types of environment that we might see.
Yeah, well, it's definitely under 100 meters.
We'll have to get a kit list.
Well, and I think the whole reason this has come to the fore is that the laptop needs to be upgraded to a desktop, and actually physically moving it becomes a whole new ball game, and hence finding a different solution, really.
Yeah, and we'll take your case and move it into a TV studio or back into post-production environment, radio studio. It's really the accessing it for the user. It's giving the user what they need at that desk. And it sounds like you've got a couple of requirements there. We just need to assess those and make sure we're going to offer you those over the extension. But then, what do you need in terms of remote access, for example? Do you want to be able to access that PC for maintenance? And you could start to look at finding products that then offer you both in one product line, and it's going to give you those different benefits. So definitely take a look, and you'd have to give me a call afterwards and we'll find exactly the right one for you. So
are you trying to suggest that Matt can log in and actually do my work for me?
Potentially so, yeah, or anyone else.
Yeah.
So, as long as you're going to give him the security rights, and the
just got to be able to do it. Yeah. You can make it physically possible. You just can't make him do it. So brilliant. Before we let you go, though, we've got one little thing. So based on, let's base this on any experiences, any challenges you've overcome, any barriers you've broken down in the last, let's say 9-10 months during this lockdown, and the solutions that you've had to sort out for people. Give us some tips. What would you tell someone? Right, 2021. If you're going to need to get over any challenges, this is what I need to tell you.
I think really is assessing what does your business look like post-COVID. We're working with a lot of clients now to build remote access in, but they're also considering what's it going to be like when people do start to return to the facility. And I think when you look at that, ultimately what we're seeing now across industry, not just within broadcast but elsewhere, is people ensuring that they are capable of dealing with both environments and not having dedicated systems for both that aren't built to work together. And maybe short term they adopted models that got them up and running in March and April last year, and they just needed to. And then over time we've maybe started to have time to think about what's the best way of doing that. And there is just no doubt about it that the way that we're working with broadcasters now, and as I say, control rooms across many different industries, is how do you prep for scenarios like this? How do you prep for a scenario where your staff may wish to be remote, and perhaps you gain an advantage as that as a business or an organization to supporting remote working? And then how do you build systems that are going to allow you to flex and change to that demand? And ultimately that's what we're really offering people, is that ability to say, well, it's like this today and it might be like that tomorrow, but I haven't got to redeploy a specific kit at the time. I'm giving that access today, and it's just about how you use it.
Yeah. Jamie, thank you very much for your time and coming on and telling us all about the Adalink Infinity 101T, and of course for your words of wisdom in my somewhat challenging environment here. It's good to see you again. And
good to see you.
Thanks to you for watching today's show, which is brought to you with the support of Mediaproxy, and you can find out more about them at mediaproxy.com. We'll see you next time.